in investment for solar in schools program, to where schools can install solar panels to help reduce their energy need and also create a learning opportunity for students. Next, I'm going to switch gears just a little bit and talk about the smart grid. I think all of you probably by now, everybody has a smart meter at their house, which is a meter that we can read remotely. We don't have to send a meter reader out. You know, technology kind of advanced. You know, when I started the company, we had to walk behind a house and had to write down your meter dial. That advanced to, you know, being able to scan and read meters. And then eventually we had a van that would just drive through and pick up a radio signal. And now the technology is advanced to where it's two-way metering, or you know, constant energy. You know, we can see what your usage is, and we put that to the web. So you can, every day you can go in and sign up on your account. You can see how much energy you used the day before. And hopefully, you know, as time goes on and we do create more programs, it'll help customers better manage their energy use. And one of the things too, that technology, that smart grid technology, we've got fiber optic lines run all over the grid, allows us to operate our grid more efficiently. And one of the technologies I'll talk a little bit about is a self-healing networks, what we call it. So essentially, we've got the ability to, for the grid to kind of sense an outage and set up protective equipment at different locations. And if, you know, there's a car wreck or a tree falls in a storm, the system can sense that's outage is there, isolate the damage area, and then feed that area from another location. To give you an idea, those self-healing networks, so far in 2020, we've been able to avoid 300,000 separate outages, long-term outages. You'll see a blink when the tree falls as it switches from one source to another. We've been able to save 300 outages and estimated about 800,000 hours of outages for customers. During Hurricane Zeta that came through recently, the technology saved about 27,500 outages, and there were more than 6,000 of those were in the triad. I know the storm, we had outages in Surry County. It wasn't as bad in Surry, surprisingly. The way that storm kind of tracked through, we had a lot more trouble in the triad and, you know, the Winston-Salem and Greensboro areas. But that's just another way we're using that technology. I think there's one of the self-healing circuits is out of our Bannertown substation and along the Andy Griffith Highway there, 52 also. Next, I'll just talk just a little bit about our commitment to customers. You know, one of the things I think, you know, as the chamber has tried to help businesses, a lot of customers are struggling during COVID right now, paying their power bills. You know, folks are unemployed. There's been, you know, some help with the government, but one of the things that we did, even before the governor put a moratorium on disconnecting service, Duke, you know, decided we weren't going to disconnect any customers. That started back in March, and I think the governor's moratorium came out, and the governor's moratorium, I think, expired at the end of July. The Utilities Commission had a moratorium on disconnects that didn't, I think, expired at the end of August. But we continue to work with customers. We waived any late fees for non-pay. And so we're working with customers quite a bit. We kind of back on October 1st, returned to normal operations. So if customers don't pay their bills, then they would get a notice that their power could be disconnected. But one of the things we've done is try to be very generous with customers and give them up to 14 months to pay anything they've got in arrears. So set up a deferred payment account. And we realize customers are still struggling. And if somebody calls us after, you know, getting started in one of those plans and realizes they can't meet the current plan, we'll renegotiate. So we're really trying hard not to disconnect anybody. And those plans apply for businesses as well. So we've had a lot of businesses that have taken advantage of that program. So it's just you know, one idea. And we've been working closely with the governor's office with some of the CARES Act money that the state has, and trying to figure out how we can efficiently provide funding to customers, you know, through the government agencies to keep people's lights on as well. I think that's really the last thing I wanted to kind of hit at a high level, and just talk a little bit about our commitment to communities. The Duke Energy Foundation, we provide grants to customers. I think it's a foundation in all the jurisdictions. We provide about $30 million a year. I think it's about 15 or 20 million in North Carolina. I have a budget that I use to help sponsor events. I know Bob Meineke has often kept me in the loop on the, gosh, Bob, I'm drawing a blank on the event, but the wine and beer tasting event in early May. And
Bud break.
there you go. We try to support events with the chamber and that sort of thing. We're also a very large property taxpayer in Surrey County. I looked that up. I think we pay about $850,000 a year in property taxes. We've got a number of employees and retirees in Surrey County. We've got two offices that provide support for Surrey County. One kind of in the Elk and Jonesville, and then the Mount Airy Operations Center. And some of the grants we've done, provided a lot of grants over the years to Surrey County Community College. We did an apprenticeship grant earlier this year for about $45,000 to help with the program there to improve the workforce. We've also provided for the COVID Foundation. We provided a grant to help with the mask program that the EDP had earlier this year. And we've also, Second Harvest Food Bank, we provided, I think it was close to $100,000 grant to Second Harvest Food Bank to help them feed folks all over the Triad.
Why are folks complaining? Why is there an overreaction, Jimmy, from your point of view on wind farms?
Yeah, I think, just with anything, I think a lot of times it's change and there's NIMBY. Folks don't want it in their backyard. In a lot of places, I think in the, out in the Midwest where we do own wind farms, they're pretty remote areas. And that's one of the issues as well with wind, and not an issue, but a challenge you have to overcome is, you put these wind farms out in pretty remote areas. The energy is needed, in an urban area. And so you've got to build transmission lines and infrastructure to get that energy back to where it's needed. But, there have been a lot of, complaints, I think, from folks. And sometimes, honestly, and this is just me talking, not an industry, but, it's, the folks that sold, land for a wind farm, for example, maybe somebody right next to it didn't get any funding from that project. And maybe you're a little concerned about that. And so there have been folks that have said, the resonance and the sound that they make creates problems. And some folks think they're ugly. One of the issues in North Carolina is the wind blows on the ridge tops, on the mountains and off the coast. North Carolina has some legislation that prevents any kind of tall structures on our mountaintop. I think kind of goes back to the high-rise condominium complex that Sugar Mountain installed years ago.
Right.
So that's been a hurdle you can't overcome.
Ironically asked, I thought really a really good question is that how is it determined if you live in Surrey County or wherever of who gets Duke and who gets Surrey, or because I know Surrey Atkin Electric is on the call with us today.
Sure.
How is that determined?
Yeah, I'll talk a little bit about that. And it kind of goes back to the beginnings. Duke Energy was formed in 1904. And so, it's like any fledgling business, as we began to operate, you had cost issues. And so, you had to have a lot of the ability to serve customers, in a densely, kind of area. And, when you looked at running a power line a long ways to a rural area or a farm, farmland, it just wasn't economically feasible. And I don't remember exactly when. I'm sure our folks here at Surrey Atkin probably know the history maybe better than I, but, the government created the electric EMC, electric, I'm drawing a blank on the commission. Co-ops, but REAs, Rural Electric Authority. Thanks, Wendy. And so, it provided, the ability for rural areas to kind of create their own, utility and get, low or no interest loans to try to get that built out. And so over time, the Carolinas group especially, we kind of started running into each other's service territories. And in the mid 60s, Utilities Commission had an exercise and with the co-ops, and we kind of divided up territory. So we kind of said this area is assigned to one utility or another, and then there are a few areas that are unassigned. There are a lot of rules where we do kind of come in close contact with each other. But the utility industry is very capital intensive. There's a lot of money, and so you really want to try to avoid. It's not very efficient for society to have Duke Energy on one side of the street
Right.
and Yadkin Electric on the other, competing for,
Right.
the same customers. But there are some cases where that happens over time. And both utilities, want to serve those customers. And it's important for us both to compete. So we will compete, but we've got a very good relationship with Surrey Yadkin, and we'll work with them. And there have been occasions where we look at something and say it might be our assigned area or vice versa, but it makes more sense for the other utility to serve it